The champagne glass in my hand was trembling, not from nerves about my husband's retirement party speech, but because of what I'd just heard coming from the corridor outside the banquet hall. His voice, her laugh, and those 4 words that would change everything. She won't notice. My name is Vivian Clark, and I'm 67 years old. Before I tell you what happened that night in Portland, Oregon, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I've learned that women everywhere share similar stories, and knowing I'm not alone has meant everything to me. This story begins 6 months before that retirement party. Though I didn't realize it at the time, my husband Charles, we'd been married for 43 years, started acting different. Not dramatically different, just off. He'd smile at his phone and quickly put it away when I entered the room. He bought new cologne, expensive stuff I'd never seen before. He started going to the gym, which would have been wonderful except he'd never mentioned wanting to get in shape. I told myself I was imagining things. After 43 years, you think you know someone completely. Charles worked as the chief financial officer for Morrison & Associates, a prestigious accounting firm in downtown Portland. He was supposed to retire in December, and we'd planned a month-long trip to Italy, something we'd dreamed about for decades. The retirement party was being held at the Columbia River Yacht Club, one of Portland's most elegant venues. The firm had spared no expense. 200 guests, including board members, the pension committee, clients, and colleagues from Charles's entire career. I'd bought a new dress, sapphire blue, because Charles always said it brought out my eyes. I'd gotten my hair done. I wanted to look perfect for his special night. I arrived early to help with final arrangements. Charles had texted saying he'd be there soon, stuck in traffic. The caterers were setting up, and I was checking the seating chart when I needed to use the restroom. The ladies' room near the banquet hall was being cleaned, so I walked down a side corridor to find another one. That's when I heard them. The corridor led past a small conference room, and the door was slightly ajar. I heard Charles's laugh first, that intimate, soft laugh I thought was reserved only for me. Then a woman's voice, younger, sultry. "Are you sure about tonight? With everyone there?" "Trust me," Charles said. "Vivian will be too busy playing hostess. She won't notice if I slip away. She never does anymore." My heart stopped. Actually stopped. I pressed myself against the wall, my purse clutched to my chest. "I can't wait to celebrate with you properly," the woman continued. "Just think, in a few months you'll be free, retired. We can finally stop hiding." "Soon, Amanda, very soon. The pension's locked in, the retirement package is signed. Just need to get through tonight, without any drama, and then we'll figure out our exit strategy." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 43 years, and this is what I meant to him? A problem to manage? An obstacle to his exit strategy? I should have burst through that door. I should have screamed. But something stopped me. Maybe shock, maybe survival instinct. Instead, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened the voice recorder app. My fingers were barely cooperating, but I managed to hit record and hold the phone toward that partially open door. "What about the Italy trip?" Amanda asked. "You're still planning to go through with that?" Charles laughed. Actually laughed. "I have to. If I cancel now, she'll know something's up. But I'm thinking I'll develop some health issue while we're there. Cut it short. That'll give me an excuse to be distant, distracted. By the time we get back, I'll have the divorce papers ready." And she doesn't suspect anything? After all this time? Amanda, Vivian stopped really seeing me years ago. We're roommates who occasionally eat dinner together. She's so wrapped up in her book club and her garden club and her volunteer work. She has no idea what's going on in my life. Tonight proves it. I told her I'd be here an hour ago. Has she even texted to ask where I am? No, she's probably fussing over napkin arrangements or something. He was wrong. I had texted 3 times. He just hadn't bothered to answer. "I still can't believe you're really leaving her," Amanda said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "After the pension is secured, of course." The pension committee finalized everything last week. 25 years of contributions, full package. She can't touch it. I made sure of that. Had my lawyer restructure some things. When I file for divorce, she'll get the house and half of our regular savings, but the pension and retirement accounts? Protected. My blood ran cold. He'd been planning this, restructuring assets, talking to lawyers. While I'd been planning our dream vacation, he'd been plotting how to leave me with as little as possible. "You're brilliant," Amanda purred. "How did you manage that?" Prenuptial modifications can be added later if both parties sign. I told Vivian it was routine retirement paperwork from the firm. She signed without reading it. Trusts me completely. I remembered that day, 3 months ago. Charles had brought home a stack of papers, said they were standard documents the firm required before retirement. I'd signed them at the kitchen table while making dinner, grateful he was handling all the complicated financial stuff. I'd always let him manage our money. He was the CFO after all. He knew best. What an absolute fool I'd been. "We should get in there," Charles said. "Can't have people talking. You go first, wait 5 minutes, then I'll follow." "One kiss first," Amanda insisted. I heard sounds that made me want to vomit. Then footsteps approaching. The door. I quickly stopped the recording and hurried back down the corridor, my heels clicking on the marble floor. I made it around the corner just as the conference room door opened fully. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. But I had it. I had the recording. Evidence of everything. The affair, the financial manipulation, the calculated deception. I found myself in the ladies' room, gripping the marble counter, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me seemed like a stranger. Perfectly styled gray hair, the sapphire dress, pearl earrings Charles had given me for our 40th anniversary. Had those been guilt gifts? Had anything in our marriage been real? My phone showed the recording, 4 minutes and 37 seconds that contained the complete destruction of my life as I knew it. I could delete it, pretend I never heard anything, go through the motions tonight, the Italy trip, maybe even confront him privately later. But then I thought about Amanda's voice. Young, confident, talking about celebrating properly and finally stopping hiding. How long had this been going on? And those papers I'd signed, prenuptial modifications. He'd stolen my financial security with my own signature. No, I wasn't going to pretend, not anymore. I took several deep breaths, fixed my lipstick, and walked back to the banquet hall. Guests were beginning to arrive. Charles was already there, playing the role of distinguished retiring executive, shaking hands and laughing with colleagues. He saw me and waved, smiling that smile I'd loved for over 4 decades. I smiled back, waved, walked over to help greet guests. "There you are," he said, kissing my cheek, the same lips that had just been kissing Amanda. "You look beautiful, darling." "Thank you," I said, my voice somehow steady. "Traffic must have been terrible." "Nightmare," he agreed smoothly. "But I'm here now. This is going to be a night to remember." He had no idea how right he was. I watched as Amanda entered about 10 minutes later. She was probably 35, maybe younger. Tall, blonde, wearing a red dress that left little to the imagination. She worked in the firm's marketing department. I knew because Charles had mentioned her occasionally. Sharp girl, he'd called her. Great at her job. Never any hint that great at her job meant anything else. She walked straight to Charles, and I watched their interaction carefully. To anyone else, it looked professional. She congratulated him. He thanked her. They chatted briefly. But I saw it now. The way his hand lingered on her arm just a second too long. The way her eyes held his. The secret smile they shared before she moved away. How many people knew? How many of these guests standing here, eating catered food, drinking champagne, offering me sympathetic smiles about becoming a retirement widow? How many of them knew my husband was planning to leave me? "Mrs. Clark?" The event coordinator approached. "We're ready whenever you'd like to start the program. Mr. Morrison wants to give the opening remarks, then several colleagues will speak, and finally Mr. Clark will give his speech. You'll introduce him, of course." I'd forgotten about that. As his wife, I was supposed to give a brief introduction before Charles's retirement speech, walk up to that microphone and say loving things about my husband. Of course, I heard myself say. "I've prepared something special." The dinner service began at 7. I barely tasted the food, some kind of salmon with asparagus. Charles was at the head table with me, the firm's senior partners on either side. Amanda was seated several tables away, but I noticed Charles's eyes drifting to her repeatedly. Robert Morrison, the firm's founding partner, stood to give the opening remarks. He spoke eloquently about Charles's 25 years of service, his integrity, his dedication. Charles Clark represents everything we value at Morrison & Associates: honesty, loyalty, and unwavering commitment to excellence. The irony was suffocating. 3 more speakers followed. The current CEO talked about Charles's financial acumen. The head of the pension committee, a stern woman named Catherine Winters, praised his careful stewardship of employee retirement funds. A longtime colleague told amusing stories about Charles's early days at the firm. Through it all, I sat there smiling, applauding at the appropriate moments, playing the proud wife. Charles reached over and squeezed my hand during one particularly glowing tribute. I squeezed back, looking into his eyes. Did he feel any guilt at all? Any remorse? His eyes showed nothing but contentment. He thought he'd won, thought he'd successfully fooled everyone, especially me. Finally, it was time for my introduction. The event coordinator nodded at me and I stood up. Charles smiled encouragingly. I walked to the podium, my phone tucked into the small clutch purse I carried. The room fell silent. 200 faces looked at me expectantly. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate Charles's retirement. When the planning committee asked me to introduce my husband tonight, I spent a long time thinking about what to say. How do you summarize 43 years of marriage in a few minutes?" I paused, seeing Charles's proud smile. Amanda was watching too, her expression carefully neutral. I thought about talking about the day we met. I was 24, fresh out of college, working as a secretary at a law firm. Charles was 26, just starting his career in accounting. He asked me to lunch, and I said yes. That lunch turned into dinner. Dinner turned into dates. And 2 years later, we were married. People smiled. This was the kind of sweet reminiscence they expected. I thought about mentioning the sacrifices we made together, how Charles worked late nights to advance his career while I managed our home, supported his ambitions, turned down my own career opportunities to be the wife he needed, how I signed every document he put in front of me because I trusted him completely. Charles's smile faltered slightly. Something in my tone must have registered. But then I realized, why talk about the past when the present is so much more interesting? I pulled my phone from my purse. You see, I learned something very important today. Something I think everyone here should know, especially the pension committee members who finalized Charles's retirement package last week. Charles's face went pale. He started to stand. "Vivian, what are you—" "I learned that my husband has been having an affair," I said clearly, my voice carrying through the suddenly silent room, "and I have proof." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Charles was on his feet now, his face cycling through shock, anger, and panic. "Vivian, sit down. You're making a scene. You're confused." "I'm not confused, Charles. I'm finally seeing clearly." I held up my phone. "About 2 hours ago, I overheard a very interesting conversation. Would you like to hear it, or should I just play it for everyone?" "You're having some kind of breakdown," Charles said, trying to laugh it off. His eyes darted to Amanda, whose face had gone white. "This is inappropriate. Let's take this outside." "No." My voice was steel. "We're not taking anything outside. You wanted a retirement party? You wanted all your colleagues, your bosses, the pension committee here to celebrate your distinguished career? Then they're going to hear exactly what kind of man you really are." Catherine Winters from the pension committee stood up. "Mrs. Clark, what is this about?" Before Charles could intercede, I connected my phone to the venue's sound system. The event coordinator had shown me how earlier, in case we wanted to play music. Now it was going to serve a very different purpose. "Let me play you something," I said. My finger hovered over the play button. This is a recording I made approximately 2 hours ago. The voices you'll hear are my husband Charles and a woman named Amanda. "Don't you dare," Charles hissed, moving toward the podium, but Robert Morrison put a hand on his arm, stopping him. "I think we need to hear this," Morrison said quietly, his face grave. I pressed play. Charles's voice filled the room. "Trust me, Vivian will be too busy playing hostess. She won't notice if I slip away. She never does anymore." Amanda's voice. "I can't wait to celebrate with you properly. Just think, in a few months you'll be free, retired. We can finally stop hiding." The room was dead silent except for the recording. I watched faces change, shock, disgust, anger. I found Amanda in the crowd. She was crying, her hand over her mouth. Charles's voice continued. "Soon, Amanda, very soon. The pension's locked in. The retirement package is signed. Just need to get through tonight, without any drama, and then we'll figure out our exit strategy. What about the Italy trip? I have to. If I cancel now, she'll know something's up, but I'm thinking I'll develop some health issue while we're there." I let it play through. Every word, the discussion about me being oblivious, the revelation about the prenuptial modifications. I told Vivian it was routine retirement paperwork from the firm. She signed without reading it. The plotting about the divorce, the financial manipulation, the pension protection strategies. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Catherine Winters's face was like granite. "Mr. Clark, you structured your pension to defraud your wife?" "I can explain," Charles started. "And you referred to pension finalization in the context of hiding assets during a planned divorce?" She turned to Morrison. "This requires an immediate investigation. Financial fraud, possible embezzlement if he structured company assets inappropriately." "Now wait just a minute," Charles shouted. But there was no stopping what I'd set in motion. Robert Morrison's expression had transformed from shock to cold fury. "Charles, sit down." "Robert, you don't understand. This is a private matter." "Private?" Morrison's voice cut through the room like a blade. "You committed potential fraud using our firm's pension documentation. You manipulated legal paperwork to cheat your wife out of marital assets. You did this while serving as our CFO, representing our firm's integrity. There is nothing private about this." Charles looked around desperately, seeking an ally. He found none. His colleagues, the people he'd worked with for 25 years, were staring at him with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. The pity, I noticed, was directed at me. "Mrs. Clark," Catherine Winters approached the podium. "May I have a copy of that recording?" "Of course." My hands were steadier now. "I'll email it to you immediately. Don't give her anything." Charles lunged toward me, but two of his colleagues grabbed him. "Vivian, think about what you're doing. This will destroy everything, our retirement, our life." "You already destroyed it," I said quietly. "I'm just making sure everyone knows." Amanda suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly. She looked like she wanted to run, but Morrison's voice stopped her. "Ms. Patterson, don't even think about leaving. Security, please ensure no one exits this room until we've sorted this out." Two security guards moved to the doors. This elegant retirement party had turned into something else entirely, an exposure, a reckoning. "I need to speak with our legal team immediately," Morrison said to his assistant. "And Catherine, I assume the pension committee will be launching a full investigation." "Absolutely. If Charles used fraudulent documentation or misrepresented his marital status to restructure his pension, that's grounds for immediate forfeiture. Not to mention potential criminal charges." Charles's face had gone from red to white to red again. "You're overreacting. I didn't do anything illegal." "You had your wife sign fraudulent documents," Catherine said icily. "You manipulated pension structures. You planned to divorce her immediately after securing benefits, which suggests premeditation and fraud. Our attorneys will determine exactly what laws you've broken, but I can guarantee your pension is frozen as of this moment, pending investigation." If you're watching this and thinking about subscribing to this channel, please do it now. because what happened next changed everything, and I want to make sure you don't miss how this story ends." Charles collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. Amanda was crying openly now, mascara running down her face. Several guests were filming on their phones. This would be all over social media within hours. "Mrs. Clark," Morrison said gently, "I am profoundly sorry. Our firm prides itself on integrity, and what Charles has done is unconscionable. I want you to know that we will cooperate fully with any legal action you choose to take, and we will ensure you receive every penny you're entitled to." "Thank you," I said. My voice was calm, but inside I was shaking. "I appreciate that." "Furthermore," he continued, "Charles's retirement package and all associated benefits are suspended immediately pending the outcome of the investigation." Charles's head snapped up. "You can't do that. I've worked for this firm for 25 years. "And you've disgraced us," Morrison said flatly. "Your employment contract has a morality clause, Charles. You violated it spectacularly. Be grateful we're not demanding you repay your salary for however long this affair has been going on, since you were clearly spending company time on personal matters." "How long has this been going on?" I heard myself ask. I looked at Amanda, who was still standing there, looking like she wanted to disappear. "How long?" Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. 18 months. 18 months. A year and a half. While I'd been planning our retirement, our Italy trip, our future together, he'd been planning his exit strategy. "Did you love him?" I don't know why I asked. Maybe I needed to know if it was real for her, at least. Amanda looked at me, tears streaming. I thought so. He said you didn't understand him anymore, that you were just going through the motions. He made it sound like your marriage was already over, that he was just waiting for the right time. The right time being when his pension was secured. I finished for her. He lied to you too, Amanda, but you still made a choice. You still participated in trying to destroy my life. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything." I turned back to Morrison. "What happens now?" "Now, we conduct a thorough investigation. Our legal team will review every document Charles handled, every pension restructuring, every financial decision. If we find evidence of fraud or embezzlement, we'll turn it over to the authorities. Your personal attorney should be present for all proceedings related to your assets." "I don't have an attorney," I admitted. Charles always handled everything legal. "Then I'll have our firm recommend several excellent divorce attorneys, ones who don't have any connection to us or to Charles. This is the least we can do." Morrison's face was grim. "Mrs. Clark, I want you to know that what Charles did reflects on him alone, not on you. You've shown tremendous courage tonight." Courage. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like survival, like the only choice I had left. "I'll need that recording for our investigation as well," Morrison continued, "along with any other evidence you might have." "I'll provide everything." I looked at Charles, who was slumped in his chair, the fight drained out of him. "I signed those papers without reading them because I trusted you. That was my mistake. But what you did, tricking me, stealing from me, planning to leave me with nothing after 43 years, that's all on you." "Vivian, please," he said weakly. "Can we at least talk about this privately?" "No. You wanted to do this surrounded by your colleagues and your mistress? Then that's how it ends, publicly, with everyone knowing exactly who you are." "Security will escort both you and Ms. Patterson from the premises," Morrison said to Charles. "Effective immediately, you're barred from entering any Morrison & Associates property pending the investigation." The security guards approached Charles and Amanda. The entire room watched in silence as they were led towards the exit. Charles tried one last time to catch my eye, but I looked away. I had nothing left to say to him. As they left, the room remained silent for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, someone started clapping. I looked up to see an older woman, Margaret Chen, one of the firm's senior partners, standing and applauding. Within seconds, others joined her. Soon, half the room was giving me a standing ovation. I stood at that podium, overwhelmed. These people were applauding not the destruction of a marriage, but the exposure of a betrayal. They were acknowledging that I'd refused to be a victim, that I'd demanded accountability. Morrison waited until the applause died down, then addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize that this celebration has taken such an unfortunate turn. However, I want to assure everyone that Morrison and Associates will handle this matter with complete transparency and integrity. Mrs. Clark, please remain. We need to discuss next steps. Everyone else, the evening is concluded. Thank you for your understanding. People began filing out, but many stopped by to speak to me first. Colleagues of Charles who said they'd had no idea. Women who squeezed my hand and whispered their own stories of betrayal. Men who apologized on behalf of their gender. It was overwhelming and oddly comforting. Margaret Chen was one of the last to approach. Vivian, I've been where you are. Different circumstances, but the same betrayal. What you did tonight took incredible strength. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you, I managed. I didn't plan this, I just couldn't let him get away with it. The best revenge is exposing the truth, she said. You did that perfectly. If you need anything, references for attorneys, someone to talk to, anything, call me. She handed me her card. After the room cleared, Morrison, Catherine Winters, and 2 attorneys from the firm sat down with me. They explained the investigation process, the likely timeline, and what I could expect. They confirmed that the papers I'd signed were indeed fraudulent modifications to our prenuptial agreement, modifications that would never hold up in court now that the fraud was exposed. Your husband was clever, one attorney said, but not clever enough. These modifications required separate legal counsel for each party to witness and verify. You didn't have independent counsel, which means the documents are void. Plus, the recording proves he obtained your signature under false pretenses. So I'll get what I'm entitled to? I asked. You'll get more than that, Catherine Winters said firmly. Charles attempted to defraud the pension fund itself by misrepresenting his marital situation. That triggers penalty clauses. The firm is within rights to reclaim portions of his compensation. You'll be entitled to half of his actual pension, plus potentially damages. I nodded, trying to process it all. A few hours ago, I'd thought my life was ending. Now I was being told I'd be financially secure after all. What about him? I asked. What happens to Charles? That depends on what the investigation reveals, Morrison said. But I can tell you this, his career is over. The next few weeks were a blur of attorneys, depositions, and documentation. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Alvarez, who specialized in high-asset divorces, filed for emergency injunctions on all our accounts. She also filed for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery. The investigation into Charles's finances revealed even more than I'd expected. He'd been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months, moving it into offshore accounts I'd known nothing about. He'd taken out a second mortgage on our house, which I'd co-owned without my knowledge, using a forged signature. He'd sold off bonds and investments, again using fraudulent documents. This isn't just marital fraud, Patricia told me during one meeting. This is criminal. The DA is considering charges. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. 43 years of marriage, and it had all been built on lies. How long had he been deceiving me? Had any of it been real? The firm's investigation concluded that Charles had indeed manipulated pension documents and committed fraud. His retirement package was revoked entirely. The offshore accounts were frozen. Amanda was fired from Morrison and Associates for violating the company's ethics policy. Through it all, Charles tried to contact me. Emails, texts, calls, all blocked by my attorney. He sent flowers with a card that said, "Please forgive me." I threw them away. He showed up at the house once. I called the police. I'd obtained a restraining order by then. I learned things I wished I didn't know. Amanda wasn't his first affair, just the longest. There had been others over the years, brief things he'd hidden well. Our Italy trip was funded with money he'd stolen from our accounts. The cologne, the gym membership, the new clothes, all purchased with money that should have been ours. Friends I thought we'd shared together turned out to be mostly his friends who'd known about his affairs and said nothing. I cut them out of my life without hesitation, but I also found real friends. Women from my book club who rallied around me, Margaret Chen from the firm who became an unexpected confidant, even some of Charles's colleagues who were genuinely horrified by his actions. 6 months after that retirement party, the divorce was finalized. I got the house, half of Charles's actual pension, half of all legitimate assets, plus a substantial settlement for the fraud. The offshore accounts were emptied and divided. I got the Italy trip money back. With interest. Charles got nothing but legal bills and a criminal record. He pled guilty to fraud charges to avoid jail time, but he was on probation for 3 years. His reputation in Portland's financial community was destroyed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Arizona, working some low-level accounting job, living in a studio apartment. Amanda had moved away, too. Someone told me she'd gone back to her hometown in Texas, gotten engaged to someone else. I didn't care enough to verify it. As for me, I did go to Italy, but I didn't go alone. Margaret Chen had recently divorced her husband of 30 years, and she suggested we make it a freedom trip. We spent 4 weeks exploring Tuscany, Rome, Venice, and the Amalfi Coast. We drank wine, ate incredible food, and talked about rebuilding our lives. Standing in Florence at sunset, looking at the Duomo, Margaret turned to me and said, "Do you regret exposing him? Some people would say you should have handled it quietly." I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "He spent years making a fool of me in private. He deserved to be exposed in public, and if I'd handled it quietly, he would have gotten away with it. He would have taken everything and left me with nothing." "You're stronger than you think," Margaret said. "Most people would have fallen apart." Maybe I was strong, or maybe I just reached a point where I had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Back in Portland, I sold the house. Too many memories, and I needed a fresh start. I bought a smaller condo downtown with a view of the river, a place that was entirely mine. I started taking classes at the community college, things I'd always been interested in but never pursued: art history, creative writing, Italian cooking. I joined a hiking group and discovered I loved getting outdoors. I volunteered at a women's shelter, helping other women navigate divorce and financial abuse. I learned that I didn't need Charles to have a life. I'd thought I did. After 43 years, he'd been my entire world. But that world had been built on lies. My new world, smaller but honest, was mine. Sometimes people ask if I ever heard from Charles again. Once, about a year after everything happened, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was him. A long, rambling message about regret and mistakes and how he'd thrown away the best thing in his life. He wanted to know if we could talk, if there was any chance of forgiveness. I deleted it without responding. Some things can't be forgiven, and some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. The money from the settlement gave me security I'd never had before. Ironic, considering Charles had tried so hard to steal it. I traveled more, invested wisely, helped my nephews with college expenses. I built a life that was full and meaningful and entirely mine. That recording on my phone, I kept it. Not to listen to, but as a reminder. A reminder that I'd found the strength to stand up for myself when it mattered most. A reminder that trust, once broken, that completely, reveals the truth of who people really are. Would I change what happened if I could? Would I go back and stop Charles from having that affair, from plotting against me, from destroying our marriage? No, because that would mean going back to living a lie. Better to face an ugly truth than live in a beautiful delusion. I'm 70 now. 3 years have passed since that retirement party. I have friends who care about me, hobbies that fulfill me, and a future that belongs entirely to me. Charles wanted his freedom. He got it, along with the consequences, and I got mine too.